Some of the student demographic results are in from various school boards on the intrusive and inappropriate data collection initiatives that they have undertaken from students, and the results are, well, marginal at best. Tamara Ugolini here reporting with Rebel News, and in case you aren't sure what exactly it is that I'm talking about, you can watch all of the previous reports that Rebel News has done on this topic at stopclassroomgrooming.com. That's a special website that we launched targeting Ontario's Education Minister, Stephen Lecce, and calling on him to remove the perversely sexual line of questioning from student school surveys. The whole thing came to me as a response from an access to information request, which you can support at rebelinvestigates.com, which is also called an ATIP, where I was looking for the monetary amounts associated with these grotesque surveys, because the surveys asked inappropriate sexual questions of children, and many went on to solicit that information about these young children and their gender identity and sexual orientation. If that wasn't heinous enough, each individual school board was given anywhere from $35,000 to $55,000 to implement these student feedback surveys from the Ministry of Education, i.e. you and my tax dollars. When you times that by the 72 school boards all across Ontario, that's $2.5 to $3.9 million just gone on this data collection exercise. Each individual school board appears to have implemented these surveys ever so slightly differently. There were at least 2 different surveys involved. One of them was called the Student Census Survey, and it came down under the directive of the Equity Secretariat and Deputy Minister of Education, Patrick Case, who makes $208,000+ per year for this crucial role. Have a listen to my previous conversation with him on this topic.
So there's 2 separate surveys here. So there would be a student census survey and then a school climate survey?
Yes.
I see. And your division is the one responsible for instituting the student census survey?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And that particular survey, how is it supposed to be conducted?
Well, this goes back now about 4 years. Actually, at the Toronto District School Board, it goes back much further than that. They first started collecting data on students, but I'm not entirely sure when they added sexual orientation and gender identity, but they started collecting data on students back in the early 80s. And then most of the rest of the school boards over the last 4 years. And so the census surveys are voluntary. Students can fill them out, or they don't have to fill them out. Parents can tell their children that they don't want to fill it out if they so wish. And in the elementary grades, that is from kindergarten to grade 8, it is parents who fill out the survey or decline to fill it out. And then in the secondary, in high school, from grade 9 to 12, students can self-identify. But again, they can choose not to fill anything, right? One thing is ministry intention. The other thing is how things get exercised at a local level. So I can't swear to what each of the 72 boards might have done. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But if it's the school climate survey that we're speaking about, then that may be handled differently. And that's in the Indigenous Education and Wellbeing Division of the ministry that handles that.
I see. Okay, it's quite convoluted.
It all sounds incredibly complicated, but we're actually trying to, over the next couple of years or so, bring these things together to make it a whole lot more rational, right?
Yeah, that's rational, all right. I asked him that question about delivery because it was explicit ministry directive that these sexualized questions be completed at home with parents. But because school boards implemented these surveys ever so differently, that wasn't always the case. And it wasn't as voluntary as they claim when students who did not wish to partake were compelled to by their teachers, as was the case in my child's own classroom. And now I have some of the data results to share with you. This particular survey and the results comes down from the Peterborough, Victoria, Northumberland, Clarington Catholic District School Board, or PVNCCDSB. It's called the Every Student Counts Student Demographic Survey Report.
The report is a result of a survey that ran from October 1st to October 25th, 2021. It says that there were two virtually identical versions of the survey, one that was sent to the parents/guardians of children in grades 1 to 8, and another that was answered in class by high school students in grades 9 to 12. But those in grades 9 and 10 apparently needed parental consent to participate. The first 23 questions and response options were provided by the Ministry of Education, and an additional 5 questions around discrimination experiences and seeing one's identity reflected in the school were developed by the board's equity advisor in consultation with board staff. As of 2022, the board hired Benjamin Tenesia to this role. According to her Twitter bio, in addition to being the equity, diversity, and inclusion advisor, she's also a speaker, facilitator, and a social justice activist. Okay, so back to this report. The overall response rate for both students and parent respondents was a laughable 24.1%. That's a response rate of less than 1/4. And yet the school board is moving ahead with changes based on this pathetic response rate, as detailed in a February update to parents. Of the 24.1% respondents, 3% chose a gender diverse identity. So that's 3% of 24.1%, which is a total of 0.007% of respondents. This comes as a social justice warrior like Sarah Savoya, the trans and gender diverse student support coordinator at the Ottawa Carleton District School Board, says that 13% of school student populations are transgendered. Listen for yourself.
To the school. How many? Can anybody answer that question? Is there any?
So you want us to out children, eh? That's awful bright.
Isn't that what you guys are doing? Outing children?
I can answer that question. So every single school in Ontario, 13% of their population.
No, I'm asking you. That's
Not impossible. I have my master's of education.
That explains
13% as a total.
13% per each school.
But the school board's own data doesn't back that up. As per the Identity Matters survey results from the 2019-2020 solicitation of gender identity and sexual orientation of minors within this board, 0.1% of children in junior kindergarten to grade 6 identify as a trans boy or man, compared to 0.6% of those in grades 7 to 12. And the same, 0.1% of children in junior kindergarten to grade 6 identify as a trans girl or woman, compared to 0.3% of those in grades 7 to 12. In contrast, 51.8% of those in kindergarten to grade 6 and 47.3% of grade 7 to 12 students identify as a boy or a man, while 47% of those in kindergarten to grade 6 and 48.2% of those in grade 7 to 12 identify as a girl or a woman. That leaves a minuscule 1.2% that would identify as otherwise in the kindergarten to grade 6 demographic, and 4.5% in the grades 7 to 12 demographic, including those likely making a joke out of it, which is a far cry from 13%. Not to mention that this represents an overall response rate of 46.5%. So those represent a percentage of the respondents.
This is blatant propaganda being spread by a reformed substitute teacher who claimed on Easter that Jesus was a drag queen. The same person that holds a Master of Professional Education focused in equity, diversity, and social justice from Western University, that advises school boards such as the OCDSB on diversity and inclusion strategies that see nothing inappropriate with the soliciting and teaching of gender identity and sexual orientation to young school-age children. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. If you'd like to let Education Minister Stephen Lecce know that you want to see these surveys revoked, then head on over to our campaign at stopclassroomgrooming.com. There you can send him a form email, and you can also sign our petition and check out all of our previous reports. That's stopclassroomgrooming.com.